Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is my Q&A that I opened up on Twitter and Instagram to take your guys' questions. One question was, walk us through an average day in the life of Mongie. What do you like to do to relax to motivate yourself to work? So an average day for me, I usually get up around 1 or 2 p.m. and then I have a cup of coffee. I get on Instagram, I get on Twitter, I update social media, I try to see what's going on, if there's any news I need to be concerned with. And then I usually, while I'm doing that, my cat Luna will sit on my lap. It's become a ritual for her to do so every time I'm sitting there with a cup of coffee. After that, I usually get a second cup of coffee and finish up whatever I had started. And then around 3:30, I then start to I go run errands if I need to do shopping or need to go to the post office or something. I do it at that time. Or I get started and go to work. Usually around 5 or 5:30, I start cooking dinner. My husband comes home from work and we eat dinner, and then I go back to work at 6 or 6:30. After that, I usually work until about 4 to 5 in the morning. After 4 to 5 in the morning, I go to bed and wash, rinse, repeat. And what do I do to relax? I like to play video games, computer games specifically, PC. Play Smite. Right now, I play Smite. And I might play like an old retro game like Theme Hospital or Sims 4 or something like that in order to unwind and relax. Gaming is kind of my go-to to unwind after a long day, or it's also what I use to like motivate myself as like a reward. I might say, okay, if I get this project done in 2 weeks, I'll reward myself with buying The Witcher 3 or something like that, and then I'll play it when I have time. Another question is, are we going to get more character development from the background characters? I love the office workers and the coffee shop girl. Yes, absolutely. I don't have any intention of just saying that Let's Play is just about the main characters. I created a lot of supporting characters because I love supporting characters myself. Usually when I watch an anime or read manga or even just, a regular standalone movie, personally, I usually fall in love with supporting characters long before I enjoy the main character. So yeah, there's going to be background development, evolution, growth, all that sort of stuff with all the background characters that I have planned. Another question is, do you have any big projects you'd like to work on in the future? Yes, I am always creating different stories. I have probably another 4 stories that I could create. One is a action, another one is a drama, a third is a fantasy, and a fourth is also a fantasy. I have a script written for a fantasy comic. It already has 60 pages scripted out, but I don't know for sure if I'm going to do that one next. I think this will answer another question, which is, how long do I see Let's Play lasting, or how many chapters do I see it going? Easily over 100. It really kind of just depends on how it's being received and whether or not Webtoons is, sick of my Once Let's Play is wrapped up, I could very easily jump into another series, another comic, I think pretty easily. But, we'll just see. We'll see where things go after Let's Play is finished. Next question. What was the biggest hurdle before starting your own comic? For me, I think it was thinking that I had enough of a comic to post. That makes any sense. So there is an expectation when you're working on your comic, and it's not an unfair expectation by any means. It's completely reasonable. And that is, if you're posting a comic, it's expected to be updated consistently. And when I first started working on comics, Let's Play is my first legitimate comic project I've ever done. I've done some fan works as just a way to get my feet wet and actually apply the mechanics and the knowledge that I know of comic creation. So Let's Play was like all mine. It was by far the first webtoon style, the vertical scrolling comic I've ever done. So I didn't have like a lot built up. And so I put it on to Pastic. I updated, I think it was like every 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. No, actually that's not right. I updated every month. That's what it was. Because drawing a comic for me at first was very hard because I could draw like a full illustration for a commission with no problem. But when you cut things down into panels, and it's like you're almost drawing like a small part of a picture, I really struggle with that for some reason. And once I got over that, I was able to update the comic a lot faster. And then I switched to 2 weeks. Well, once I got comfortable enough to update the comic every 2 weeks, that's when I started posting on webtoons and try to be absolutely sure that, okay, I'm going to update every Friday at webtoons or every 2 Fridays on webtoons. It's come hell or high water, it's going to happen. So that was for me, that was the biggest hurdle, was trying to meet deadlines and get be able to draw fast enough, create the comic fast enough in order to meet those deadlines. What inspired your art style? What would you suggest someone to use if they did digital art before they were thinking about trying it? I think I developed my own style because it's kind of an amalgamation between manga, anime, and American comics. I get told my style is very similar to Naruto, which was illustrated by and created by Kishimoto Musashi. And that's entirely possible because I did a lot of Naruto fan art, and it actually became my most requested commission style. So I think that Naruto influenced my style. Growing up reading X-Men when I was a kid, it really influenced my style. There is some aspects to my style that I wish I didn't do because it takes me longer to draw. And I think if I was to do a new series, I would do it a little bit more simplified. That remains to be seen. Do you plan a working schedule, or do you just work whenever? Well, like I said earlier, I usually work about 6 to 7, maybe sometimes 8 hours a day, trying to meet deadlines. And I can't really afford to procrastinate because if I do, the chapter won't get done in time. So I try to average out 7 hours of work every day, because if I don't, then I would have to work 10 hours a day in order to make up for the time that I lost. And I have a software that I use on my computer that tracks every time my mouse moves, tracks what software I was using at the time. And so I can get a pretty good sense of how much I'm working and what I'm spending my time doing. Last week, by Monday of last week, I had already worked 20 hours. I had slept 6 in 48 hours. And I was thinking to myself, well, I've worked 20 hours, I've slept 6 hours. What was I doing with the other 22 hours of my day? So it really kind of gets to the point where you have to micromanage your time a lot. When I was working 9 to 5 as a programmer and head of IT, I was working 9 to 5 job, and after 5 o'clock I'd come home or log off or whatever, and I could do whatever I wanted until I went to bed. But I can't do that anymore. So Let's Play is heavily based on gaming, right? There's so many odd facts you slot in that I had no idea about. How do you know all this stuff? Perhaps a past career in gaming and programming. Thanks for all your hard work. As I said, I used to work head of IT. I worked for a company that was entirely web-based. I developed the software, the web software, and the database from scratch. And I worked there for over 11 years. And before I left to become self-employed as an artist and creator. My first gaming system was a Commodore 64. I learned how to read playing text-based games at a very young age. And then I proceeded to play Atari. And then I got an NES. I didn't get a Super Nintendo until well after it had come out. I actually went from an NES to a Genesis, Sega Genesis. And then I got an SNES that was for my cousin after he was done playing it. And then I got an Xbox, and then I got an Xbox 360. And I started PC gaming when I was 16 years old. I actually became very ill from mono and liver failure from a illness, and I had to be home from school for over a month. In that time, my friend, she had a PC that she let me borrow. I was playing games like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? I was playing Solitaire, and that's really what kind of sparked my interest in PC gaming. So by 16, I bought my own my parents bought their own PC for the family, and then I started playing games like X-Wing, Age of Empires, Theme Hospital, games like that. By 17, I had saved up and bought my own PC. Well, I should say I bought my own PC parts and I built it myself. And by the time I went to college, I took that same PC to college and have since rebuilt my PC about 7 or 8 times. I went to college originally for music. It didn't work out for various reasons, which I can go in later. And I went to college for computer science, and I have a degree in computer science. Specifically, my focus was in programming and database design. If there's any kind of programming knowledge, I have formal education in it and practical work experience. What was your inspiration for Let's Play? I get this question a lot in my streams when I'm taking questions. And I'll say it here. Hopefully everybody will see it and they'll understand where it's coming from. So the very fundamental idea I had for Let's Play was I watched a very popular YouTube, and I will never say who it is, so please don't ask. This person played a fan-made game, and the game itself was actually pretty rough. It was pretty clearly that person's very first game, if not one of the very first. It lacked a lot of mechanics that were pretty essential to playing a game, and it was just done by somebody who was not very experienced, and it was pretty evident. And that popular YouTuber played the game and raged very, very hard about it, and kind of, I wouldn't say went off the ledge, but it was pretty critical. As I was watching this video, I felt really bad for the creator because they made this game out of, because they were curious about it, because they wanted to, because they enjoyed it, because they were a fan of this YouTuber, and they may never have expected this YouTuber to play their game, but here their game was getting played by this YouTuber and just getting lambasted. And I just felt really bad for the creator. And I know the YouTuber wasn't trying to be mean. They were just kind of frustrated because they had to record a video, they had to get it done, and it just wasn't going well. And so they were just kind of venting their frustration. And I get that. But I still felt bad for the creator. And I thought to myself, what would it be like if this YouTuber met that creator, like at a con or on the street or whatever? How would that creator react? Would they be like, yeah, you're right, I messed up, I should have done this differently? Or were they still even a fan anymore? So that was kind of the basis of like the very like root fundamental aspect of Let's Play. And then from there I thought, okay, well, could I make this a romance and comedy? And also, like, how can I have these people interact? And that was, easily making them neighbors kind of has that whole forced interaction situation. So it wasn't, I know a lot of people say, oh, this is fan fiction for whoever YouTuber. I didn't even know YouTuber fan fiction was a thing until after I started posting Let's Play on Discover. I didn't look it up. I didn't even think, it didn't even cross my mind that maybe there's fanfic for YouTubers out there. The last time I read fanfic was my own when I wrote it like 8 years ago. So it didn't even cross my mind. And so it's not based off any existing story, anything else. It was just this particular event that happened with this YouTuber and this creator that kind of sparked the idea of Let's Play. What's your overall favorite thing to draw? Boobs. Next question. Is Bowser best dog? Bowser is best dog, and Bowser is best boy. Doesn't matter who else I put in that comic. Bowser will always be best boy. Are there characters we haven't been introduced yet? Yes, absolutely. I kind of front-loaded a lot of characters very quickly in Let's Play. And so there are other characters like Sam's family, Marshall's family. There's going to be VTubers that's in the story. Like his friends, other creators, and other entertainers. I also want to have the story kind of go around conventions and like cosplay. So there's definitely more characters to be introduced. Our two main characters, Samantha and Marshall, what gave you inspiration for them, and are they based off people you know in real life? Just as a note, just because her name is Sam doesn't mean her name is Samantha, so we'll just call her Sam. One of the inspirations for the characters, Sam is very loosely inspired by a very close friend of mine who passed away about 10 years ago. She had various health issues and passed away suddenly, but her kind of history and her personality and some of her background is somewhat similar to Sam. And I think in some way my friend is living on a little bit in Sam in a way, and it just kind of reminds me of her in some ways and aspects, and that, helps me feel good. And when it comes to Marshall, I know a lot of people want to say that Marshall is Markiplier or PewDiePie or Jacksepticeye, and that wasn't my intention. He's not supposed to be any one particular YouTuber. If I had made him blonde hair, blue-eyed, people would say he was PewDiePie. If I had made his hair green, people would say he was Jacksepticeye. Or in this case, his hair happens to be black and he happens to have brown eyes, which is, for me, I like the tall, dark stranger kind of situation. And that's why I made his hair dark. It's not because I want to make him Markiplier. So I did, in some respects, want him to be similar to other YouTubers out there because I wanted people to say, oh, I like this YouTuber and Marshall reminds me of him. So they already kind of have a bond to his character because they relate him to somebody else they're already a fan of. Plus, this also helps that they understand like a preconceived culture that YouTubers are already going through and dealing with. So he's not supposed to be any one particular YouTuber, and I'm okay if people say, oh, he just reminds me of this, but he's not, it's not intentional to make him, oh, he is this one person specifically. Who is your favorite character from Let's Play? That's pretty easy to say. It's Samuel Young Sr. He is by far my favorite. He's fun to draw, he's fun to write, he's fun to draw expressions for. When it comes to like my favorite characters of anime and manga, his personality and trope is by far my favorite. Who is the toilet paper thief? Or in a better phrase, will we find out who the toilet paper thief is? Yes, you will. It will actually be in the story. Who would you say is or are some of your favorite Let's Players? I think my favorite Let's Player is Dan Avidan from Game Grumps. He's hilarious. We are very similar in a lot of ways, personality and history. Though I didn't grow up as a Jewish boy in Jersey, but we have a lot of the same experiences, like what games we've played and just kind of life experiences. And I think that I can relate to him a lot. So I think my next favorite YouTuber would be Jacksepticeye. He's hilarious. He's got a lot of spunk, just can kind of put me in a good mood. And he's so lighthearted. He doesn't take things too seriously. I think I really appreciate that kind of personality to him. After that, I would say it's probably Aaron Hansen from Game Grumps. I love his voice acting. I think it's just adds so much to their gameplay. Whenever he starts doing his different voices, it fills me with delights. It's definitely very entertaining. So yeah, Dan Avidan, Jacksepticeye, Aaron Hansen. Are there stories behind the names of the characters? So people think that Marshall Law's name is based off of character in Tekken, and I have to confess, I didn't know that character existed when I created Marshall. When I was trying to come up with a name for him, it was literally a situation of my husband and I sitting in my office, and I go, okay, well, I got the story plotted out, and I got the main character, the main female character, I've got her friends, I've got all this kind of stuff. I don't know what to name the main male character. And we kind of scratched our heads back and forth, and he just said, what about Marshall? And I was like, okay, that works. And, but I will say, and this is probably a big spoiler, but very much like Jacksepticeye, Jack's not his real name. So just because Marshall Law calls himself Marshall Law doesn't mean that Marshall is his real name. So something to keep, it's food for thought, something to keep in mind. But when it comes to Sam, I like the name Sam. And I think one of the reasons why I picked it, because she works in the IT field, and it will come up in the story, is that Sam could be either male or female. And when you write Sam Young on an email, it's entirely possible the recipient might think that you're male. And once they meet you in person, that might actually affect their perception of you. So I wanted to have an ambiguous, non-gender specific name for her. And when it comes to Young, I just wanted her to have a very ordinary, common name as a last name. So next question, what inspired you to become a comic artist? Well, when I was 12, I remember telling my mother I was going to be the youngest comic artist ever published. But I was like, okay, this is going to be my goal. Well, needless to say, that's not a possibility anymore. I always loved reading comics. I love reading in general. It's not that I need pictures or whatever to enjoy a story. But I really appreciated art in comics and graphic novels. And I always loved being creative and drawing. And I thought, I love telling stories, so telling a story with pictures in a comic or a graphic novel would be awesome. And when you work a programming job or an IT job, there's not a lot of room for creativity. You can try to be creative in some of your problem solving, but you can't really be too creative because you're restricted with the constraints of the programming, the language that you're using. It really became a situation where it's like, well, I don't really do music anymore, so I need a creative outlet, and it was just easier to get into drawing. And loving loving manga and comics growing up, I was just like, I would love to do this sometime. And so once I was financially stable and saved up enough money, paid off my student loans and paid off the cars, and my husband had a good stable job and loved what he was doing, I was like, okay, I think it's time to have a new chapter in my life and move on to something that I really enjoy. Are you a self-taught artist? Yes, I am. Last art class I took, I was 12 years old, and it was a requirement for all students at that age. I didn't go to art school. I didn't go to art college. I haven't had an art lesson for quite a few years. So I'm entirely self-taught. I saw in your bio you played tuba. I'm in band, so I just want to ask you, if you had more time, would you pick up playing again? No, I don't think so. So you can see over here I have a bass guitar. Over there I have a tenor saxophone. I will probably not pick up playing the tuba for a multitude of reasons. One is it's an extremely expensive instrument, even when you buy it used. And secondly, the reason why I stopped playing it was because I was not physically capable of playing it anymore. A lot of people don't know about me. I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. It causes my joints to dislocate or partially dislocate very easily. And one of the problems I had with playing the tuba, I originally played it for 11 years, went to a conservatory at college, but one of the problems I ran into was that it's a very demanding physical instrument to play, and it wasn't unusual for me to take a large breath in order to play the instrument and result in a rib dislocation or a sternum dislocation. The cartilage that goes around the front of my rib cage actually dislocates and will float inside of my body partially. It's a situation where I should probably have surgery to get that corrected, but I don't really have any desire to get under the knife anytime soon. So I will not physically, I will not be able to play the tuba anymore, which is why I will not pick it up again. But when it comes to something like the bass guitar, which is not nearly as physically demanding, or the tenor saxophone, which, you know, with a good back strap is not physically demanding at all, I still do enjoy music to myself in some ways. And tuba is an incredibly awesome instrument to play. I loved playing it with every fiber of my being. I was really wanting to make it my career. But it was just, it was not something that I could physically do realistically, unfortunately. Will you come to any cons in Portland, Oregon? Man, I'd love to go to Portland. It's a cool place. But just like any con in anywhere, I do a digital comic that people can read online for free. So if I go to a con, I'm not really going to make any money. I don't have a book to sell. I have very little, like, I might have prints. I have a few prints, but I'm not going to sell enough prints to fund a booth and the trip and the time I'm going to lose to work. So, I mean, I love cons. I love doing cons. I love being at cons. I'm actually one of those weirdos that love to public speak. I do panels and really enjoy them. Unless I get invited to go to a con and I don't have to pay for a table and they put me up in a hotel, I probably won't go to a con because it's just going to cost me a lot of money to do it. Will you ever make this comic into a paper version? Probably not. Webtoons is formatted, with these big panels and stuff like that. And if you want to put it in print media, you got to cram the panels into the traditional format. And I just don't think Let's Play is designed to fit that way. Also contractually, I can't print Let's Play for another 3 years after it's finished. So if I finish Let's Play tomorrow, I have to wait another 3 years before I can actually print and sell it. So I believe it's 3 years. Yeah, I'm fairly certain it's 3 years. Who is the easiest and the hardest character to draw? Easiest would be Umed. Anytime he's in the panel, I'm just like, oh, this is going to be easy. This is a piece of cake. It's going to take me no time at all to draw him. The hardest is Sam, unfortunately. I think it's because it's a situation where I think too much. I think too hard about how I want to draw her. I mean, it's a terrible problem to have your main character being the most difficult to draw, but she's getting a little bit easier to draw every time I draw her. And then after her is probably Marshall, which again, another terrible problem to have is your main characters are your hardest characters to draw. How did you make the change from a career in coding to artist? Was it difficult? What advice would you give students who are passionate about both art and science in the fast-paced world? It was very difficult, switching careers. Working IT It's a very lucrative job. I was making a lot of money. And I'm not trying to brag or anything. I was making good money. I mean, but it was incredibly stressful. It was a very, 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 very stressful job. And it wasn't really that rewarding. I am not the type of person that is rewarded by more money. Meeting goals, making achievements, stuff like that, that is rewarding to me. Not more zeros on a paycheck. That doesn't. As long as have a roof over my head and I'm warm and I'm getting fed, I'm happy. You know, I'm not a materialistic person. I don't need things to be happy. So it was definitely just one of those situations where I was working there and I was just, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I'm so stressed out. I'm going to get cancer if I keep working here. And I had a situation where I was doing a convention and I heard that they were doing, that Marvel and Dark Horse and Devil's Due Comics were doing a portfolio review. And I had created, like I said earlier, the Carmen Sandiego and Where's Waldo fan comic for our portfolio review. And I presented it to all three. I got called back from Dark Horse and by Marvel. And Dark Horse said, you know, it looks good, but you need to work on this and you work on that. I was like, okay, great, awesome, thank you. And took notes and everything like that and thanked them for their time. I got called back by Marvel and they said, we love it. We want to take your portfolio back and we want to work with you. And I was like, whoa, awesome. It was a situation where, and I'm not going to go into that, why I don't work for Marvel now. There are reasons and I don't want to go there. It was kind of a reaffirming to me that it's like, okay, I am a decent comic. I can draw a decent comic. I can tell a story. I was already doing commissions for a long time before I left my IT job. And I took, I saved up, paid off our cars, paid off my student loans. My husband had gotten laid off like a year before I was planning to leave. Actually, I was planning on leaving and then my husband suddenly came home and he's like, I just got laid off. And so I was like, well, great. Now I have to stay here longer until, he can, because he was like, I'll support you while you follow your dream. And then that happened. And so he got a new job and that, we waited, I think 6 months that he had been working there, 8 months or so. And he was well established and liked it there. And then I left. I told him, I basically was kind of forced to tell them that I was leaving. I was just like, I'm ready to move on. Ready for a new chapter in my life. Marvel is interested in working with me, and I just think it's time to move on. And my employer's like, God bless, best of work. I hope it goes well for you. And they were supportive, and I was really appreciative of it. And then I left. They took me out to lunch, and everybody said their goodbyes, and then I haven't gone back. I have my friend Richard that I stream with occasionally. He was my assistant. He was hired as my assistant while I was working there, and we are still friends. So he kind of still gives me the skinny on what's going on at my old job. And but yeah, it was a difficult decision to make because it's hard to just say, okay, I make this much money and I'm going to lose that money, that it's that stability. It's just like, okay, well, but it was a situation where it's like, I need to take my health into consideration. Like, it's not healthy for me to continue working here, and it's going to be rough, but I'm going to make it work. And I'll be honest, there was a part where I was when I first started posting on webtoons, and I just thought to myself, if my comic doesn't get featured, then I'm going to have to go back to work as a programmer, and I'm going to hate it. It's going to suck because I don't like programming. I really don't. I mean, I can do it. I can do it pretty easily. I can build a software from scratch and do a database and all that kind of stuff, but I don't find it fun. I don't find it entertaining. I don't enjoy doing it. It's incredibly boring and unrewarding. And so I thought, if I make this comic and it doesn't get picked up, it doesn't get featured, I'm going to have to go back to that. And it was scary. It was very scary. So it's a hard decision to make. And I guess you could say, well, I could have continued working IT and continue and try to work on Let's Play, but there was no way I could work on Let's Play and do a full-time job at the same time. It just wasn't possible. So it was just kind of a leap of faith situation. And I mean, that's still a concern that I have, is that, you know, if I finish up Let's Play and, you know, down the road and it's like, okay, that chapter's done, or that story's done, you know, what am I going to do now? I mean, I could make another comic, which is entirely what I'm planning on doing, but what if Webtoons doesn't want that one? You know, what if nobody wants to print it? What if whatever? What am I going to do? Am I going to have to go back to programming after I haven't for a few years? I mean, that's terrifying to think of, you know. So it's I don't have the job stability that I had before, and that can be very stressful, but at the same time, it's just kind of how it is, unfortunately. So yeah, that's this Q&A. It's probably a lot longer than I intended to, but I had a lot of questions. Thank you all for sending them to me. There was a lot of repeats, so I tried to kind of tie some in together. Hopefully this answers you guys' questions. Thanks, and I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.